In this video, we're going to cover how I created the stunning key visual from start to finish. Let's get started. Hey, what's up everybody? This is TDJ here. I'm finally back on YouTube. It's been a long journey since my first video, which by the way, if you guys haven't seen my first video where I go over how to color like a pro, I created a playlist going over all my videos and tips and tricks and tutorials on how to become a better colorist and artist along the journey. And today this is kind of like a little bit of spin off to Color Like a Pro, but in case you guys want to see more, make sure you guys follow, like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Let's get right down to business. So in this video today, we're going to go over one of my favorite posters and key visuals that I created for the comic book that I'm creating that's coming up in 2 months. It's called Atlas, Edge of Rebellion, and we're going to get over all the pieces here now. I don't have all the time lapse. I didn't record the whole session of me coloring as I was doing the piece, but I'm happy to go ahead and just break it down and break all the layers and show you guys every little bits and pieces of how I started from here to there. With that being said, let's get started. So we're switching gears to my iPad Pro. As you can see, there's a time lapse of how I created this from sketch to pencils. I originally, created this poster as a horizontal figure. So that's, the poster left to right instead of how it is right now, which is vertical. Originally, it was going to be horizontal because I wanted to put a whole lot into this poster. So you see, like I said, there's Keith in the main picture. You got all these characters on the left and the right side. And originally, Atlas was not supposed to be on the poster. There was a character named Devana Casala who's in the middle, and she's the one in the red that has basically, if you can guess what kind of power she has the power to manipulate chains through her body, so you can see her sprouting chains throughout the whole composition. So that was going to be like, I guess, the centerpiece of the composition. Of course, down the line, I replaced her with Atlas because I did not want to reveal Devana in the series because she's not going to be in the first book, but she'll definitely be in the second book for Atlas. So eventually, as you can see down the line, I'm going to eventually replace it with Atlas, where I created, Atlas in the middle where he is right now, and I'll save it for another time. All right, so we're back here on my computer, on my tablet. So we are in Clip Studio Paint. So all the files that I exported from my Procreate, once I finished my pencils, I export them into my Dropbox and then open it in Clip Studio Paint. Normally I would do this in Photoshop, but I want to be more familiar with the Clip Studio Paints because ever since I played with it, I love the new features they have and all the cool brushes and such. So with that being said, so we have the poster here, and you can see there's a lot of layers going on here. So I'm gonna break it down so you can see we have layers for every character. So each character has their own set of layers, including in the background. So there's a lot going on. So let's just break it down here. So let's begin by talking about composition. We have overall focus. We have a focal point, and that is right here, which is Atlas. So Atlas is the main focal guy, and as you can see, Keith is looking down at him. We got the characters that are helping along with the overall flow of the poster, and so everything's pointing down to Atlas because Atlas is the main character. He's also the main character. They're all main characters, by the way, but Atlas is the key thing. And then of course his name on the bottom kind of helps out with key visuals. So that is the movement of the piece. So when you're creating a key visual or a poster or some kind of cover, when it comes to doing something like this, know where to place your viewers' eyes when you're creating these visual keys. As you can see with some posters from anime, they do a good job of doing that. It's not just characters everywhere placed in a different, there's a purpose to why they're placed there. So Marvel is known for doing the triangle thing where they have the character set in the triangle. Cowboy Bebop, they have the character set where it's like all different. It's like they have them placed in different shapes. They mask them in different shades, and you got the different colors associated with the character. So there's different ways of how to get your viewers to look, how to visualize what your story is. And get your viewers to look from one point to another. So like with my poster, everyone's looking down, and we have Atlas being you know, on the forefront. Okay, we're basically gonna break it down to each of the pieces that I have for the character. So as you can see, we have the characters all set in different layers. So what I did essentially for all the characters, I did as what's called cel shading. With this, like what I have with Keith, so we look at Keith. Yes, Keith has no clothes on, but whatever. Anyway, so with Keith, he's just all a flat. So we got our flats here. So we got our skin. Here's our flats here with the pieces. And then I have a layer for the shadows. So I will go, as you can see, I will go into the, I normally set my shadows to the cool tone. So a lot of times we associate warm colors and cool colors. That's our main palette for most of our pieces. So the cool colors I would use for shadows. That kind of basically pushes back the form. And then you have the warm colors, which are bright highlights and tones, and they help kind of define the forms as well. Like putting the, like whenever there's a light, you have those warm tones. So with the shadows, I got like this kind of like this muted blue or lavender color for the tones. So for these shadows, I would normally like I would mask them because some people, they even mask the shadows themselves. I tend to do the opposite, where I just fill everything in shadow and then I would mask out, or basically, you know, select the highlight pieces that are not a shadow, and I would just highlight those. So I kind of do like the opposite of how they would do it. Under here, I have what's called a gradient bottom. So what it is a way to tone down your character. So let's say your character is in a red environment like I have back here, and I want to push back, you know, some of the, you know, the body a little bit. So I would have what's called a gradient, where I use the same cool color tones, but I use a gradient from here, and that way, as you can see, there's a little bit more depth going on with the character. He's not just up in the front the whole time, because what's happening is that Atlas is going to be up front, so I want to push back some details. So this is where you create the depth and, you know, the focal point, because the focal point, like I said before, is Atlas. And if Atlas is just there with no gradient, you see that he looks like he's on the same picture plane as Atlas, and I don't want to be like that because he's in the background for sure. So I push back the details so that he blends in a little bit with the background. I got my shadows done, then I go to the highlights, and the highlights are very simple. I do a highlight soft where I do go with the airbrush, and I just do a little hints of the highlights here and there. Just very soft, very minor. I just want to kind of like put points of where. So I always think of the body as different shapes. So like the head is like a sphere, and if you look at a sphere in a light, you see that when it comes to highlights, it has like a small area that highlights the piece. That's where the highlights are. You get this little small speck. So I imagine the head basically like a sphere, and if I were to put a light near his head like that, that's how it would look as if it was in a sphere. Same thing with the shoulders. The shoulders are like a sphere. The arms is like a cylinder. So the way you see light with simple shapes, you want to kind of incorporate that with the body. So break it down to the big shapes. Break it down to big details. And then once you get the main pieces together, once you get your foundation, then I can go into the details like I did with the muscles and with the cutting edge, you know, blacks and so forth. So that's our highlights soft. We got our highlights hard. And like I said, the highlights, I mainly use the warm colors, so the reds, the oranges. And then I also have another set of highlights for the skin. And then, well, I don't know why this layer is there. This must be an empty layer. But going up, then I messed with the, it looks like I messed with the, I added some color to the line. So like his little visual goggles has some orange in it, and then the special effects. So that's generally what I did with all the characters. So Keith was one of them. Josiah, you can see it's the same thing. You got your shadows, your highlights, your color holds, and then the glasses and soles. That's just like extra details on top. So like the glasses, I have it as a green visual light, and I put that as linear lights. That's your blending modes. I essentially did that for all the characters. And like same thing with Atlas, you know, I got the rendering, I got the color holds, I got splatters as a separate layer. When you see my first video, I don't work with a lot of layers. I just do everything in one layer. But when it comes to cel shading, you can put everything in a separate layer, so that way it's non-destructive. So that way when you go back for it, let's say the shadow's a little different, you want to change it, it's not permanent. You can actually go back and mask out the shadows you want to change, because everything is in layers. Now of course, with bigger layers, that's bigger files, but if your computer can work with it, that's something I recommend you just go ahead and put everything in separate layers. And so same thing like I did with Atlas. The water was very tricky, because because when I was trying to create, I wanted to create like a water sphere. And so when you look at water, there's a lot of intricacies with it. There's a lot of extra details behind it. So I just simply, because you got the tides, you got the little bubbles that surround around him. So that's all me just having different layers. I could, like you can see, here's our base colors, here's our gradient bottom. Again, that's the tone to push back some of the details. I added more shadows in the water so that it looks more like water. There's a lot of shadows happening in the water, so I added an extra layer of shadows there. Another layer of shadows on top of that, on top of everything. Then I have my highlights. Yeah, my highlights white. I added rim lights because Atlas his body's reflective, so his water reflects to his body. So I added some rims over some rim lighting. Then I got this white spots where the water is reflecting light. Color holes, so the water. So I basically colored the inks to the color of the water. Splatters. Oh, sorry, saving right now. That's a good thing about CSP that it auto saves. Splatter and some glows, and there you go. And again, you do the same with all the characters. So that's generally how I created this poster. On to the next thing, we're going to talk about color theory. So color theory, with this piece, as you can see, if we just look back, if we just squint our eyes and try to see what are the main colors, you can see there's a lot of oranges and a lot of blues. Those are what you call complementary colors that are opposite each other. So blue, so the opposite of blue is orange, the opposite of red is green, the opposite of purple is yellow. So and we tend to use those a lot to kind of like bring focal point to the visual piece that we're trying to do. So normally we would use the warm colors as the focal point, but I did the opposite, where I just have the bright blues as the focal point, because again, Atlas is the focus of the piece, and so I use a whole lot of bright blues and some cyans to basically bring your eye towards that piece. And then I have there's some reds and oranges going on, but it's not overpowering the blue. But it does help kind of create the contrast between the two as you create the piece. So the characters, thankfully, the characters are they have a lot of red tones in their character designs, so I could just easily put them together. The contrast is a key thing to this poster, because everything has to flow naturally. We don't want everything to just pop and pop, and there's nothing visual. Everything is just too much. So we want to provide some of the because again, the visual cues, we want our viewers to look around the piece and get an idea of what's going on. Now, as I told you, the blues are the highlights. I also had Derek, the guy with the lighting powers. He also is blue because his lighting powers is blue. And I also put him in the forefront. I'm also putting him in the front because in the series, we're always going to see him and Atlas, go back and forth with each other. And so they're going to be the main, guys fighting along, because they're headbutting each other throughout the book. And so I just gave more reason to kind of put him in the front, because he's pretty much the hothead in the series. And so with all those pieces together, once you have your colors together, once you have your composition together, and your rendering as well, you got a nice key visual. So guys, I had a lot of fun with this piece. I really enjoyed the process going, and I'm so excited to get this book out in 2 months. So be sure you guys check us out on our platform. So I'm getting ready to promote the book as we get close to the deadline. And in case you want to learn more about the series, you can go to my website, tdjcomics.com/atlas, and get more familiar with the characters. And you can also check out a free comic book that I have listing 2 books that's going to come out. As I said, Atlas is one of them, and we also have Adventures of WAFFLE-BOY. So be sure to be on the lookout for those properties coming out very soon. Alright, so that wraps up my video for today. But before I go, all of you YouTube followers that are still sticking with me, we just opened shop. So we got, look at these prints. We got some gorgeous prints. We got characters from Apple Ninja August. So we got the Cloud Assassin. We got Zero. Characters from Marvel. We got, these are characters from October. Killmonger, Black Panther. We got Todoroki and Deku. All these characters are available to you at the store. The name of the site is artofTDJ.com. We'll have the links down below. And we also got t-shirts. We got plenty of t-shirts. I'm repping the Cloud Assassin right now. And we also got the Warrior Princess. So there's plenty more where you come from. So be sure you guys check your boy out. And if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And thank you guys again for your love and support. This is RTDJ signing out.